Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Lennard. I major in architecture and I really love video games. That's why my topic for today is about ESPN and esports. Esports. ESPN is entertainment and sports programming network, and esports is electronic sports, which is competitive gaming. It's about video games if you're competing with someone that is considered as an esports game. So lately, ESPN has been covering esports in their TV channels, and I was thinking if it's good for esports that ESPN start covering them in their traditional TV, which give us my major claim. The ESPN coverage of esports will improve the market for esports. And I will support this claim with 4 points for secondary claims. The first one is traditional TV coverage would expand the viewership of esports. And for this one, I will support it with four with four supporting facts. The first one is ESPN is the #1 sports program. According to Fox Sports, in their article, the 15 most valuable sports network, ESPN is the #1 sports program with a revenue of 7.5 billion in 2014 in revenue. And they also include in their article that ESPN is 3 times bigger than the second most valuable sport network, which is NFL network. And this my secondary supporting fact for my first point is ESPN has an average of 2.3 million viewers in 2014. According to the fact sheet of ESPN Media Zone, ESPN closes the year as the most watched cable network in prime time for the first time in its history. ESPN has an average 2.3 million viewers. They went up 5% from 2013. And then the third one is ESPN has 9.9 billion visits in 2014. Also in the fact sheet of ESPN, ESPN Digital Media finishes the best year in the sports category with 9.9 billion visits, 82.8 billion minutes of content consumed, and 12.9 billion minutes of watched ESPN streamed, and 4.8 billion views of video clips on the web. And that's my fourth supporting fact for my first point. ESPN has 4.8 billion views of video clips in the web. And my next point, to support my major claim, ESPN coverage of esports will improve the market of esports, is expanded viewership will bring new sponsors to esports. And I will support this with 2 supporting facts. The first fact is sponsors can be everywhere. According to the article of idealist.org on how to find a sponsor, they quoted corporate sponsors seems to be everywhere in today's world. And my secondary supporting fact is sponsors like publicity. And since ESPN will cover esports in their traditional TV, sponsors will like the publicity that they will give to esports. And according to the idealist.org on how to find sponsors, publicity is why your sponsors will sign on to will sign on to your programs, and that concludes my second point. The third point is increase of sponsorship will bring more tournaments to esports. And I will support this with one fact: all tournaments have sponsors, and that's a fact that doesn't need an evidence. We all know that all tournaments have sponsors. And my fourth point is increase of sponsorship raises tournament prizes. And my supporting fact on this is big sponsors brings big prizes. I have one evidence that I found that Valve, the creator of Counter-Strike, has hosted the biggest esport games this year with a total of 18 million of prizes. And that concludes my major claim: ESPN coverage of esports will improve the market for esports. Thank you.
All right, Leonard. Well, it's a little bit circular in the way it reasons. In essence, coverage will result in more coverage. I think that they kind of need to explain why we would want to have more coverage of this, why it's a good thing, what the benefit would be in the long run, how that's going to improve things either for ESPN or for the esports groups themselves. So, if we draw more people to watching the games on a network like ESPN, why do we want to do that? What are we going to get from that? Is the company that sponsors those things going to get more money? I mean, you mentioned sponsorship. That's great, except there's an old saying: you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Suppose you put on all of those esports on ESPN and nobody watches. I'm not exactly sure that you've accomplished anything. You need to show that there's a growing demand for this kind of thing, that access is going to increase the demand, and that's what's going to drive the sponsorships and produce the outcomes that you want. You label the proposition pretty clearly. I like the introduction where you basically kind of tell us why it is you're talking about this. I think you need a little bit more explanation about why this is a controversy. This is a marketing decision that ESPN is going to have to make. Well, who are they competing with? If they're the only ones who are covering esports, why do they have to worry about this? If other people are getting into this market, then there ought to be an explanation about why this is desirable, and then I think it gives it a little bit more context. You start to preview the supporting points, but in actuality what you do is you preview the evidence that you have in your supporting points. You're overdoing it in the organization on the first point. I'm going to support my first point with 4 pieces of evidence, and they are X, Y, and Z, that sort of thing. Tell us what your argument is so that we could listen and develop how those points all fit together, and we can see how this information is going to lead us to a conclusion. Not just label that here's the evidence, but explain to us how your first, second, third, and fourth points lead inevitably to the conclusion that your proposition has. And I'm not sure that you've done that as effectively as you need to. You did signpost the points when you got to them, so that helps in the body of the speech. Nobody's getting lost, but we're not. The purpose is to build an argument for yourself, and I'm not sure that you're doing that enough. On your evidence, you've got some examples, you've got some statistical information, a couple of pieces of testimony, a lot of factual data. And I think you generally cite sources for all of those things, so that works well. But what we need, I think, is a little bit more evidence that talks about how esports are going to benefit from this. I know that ESPN is a valuable franchise. I know that it's the most watched network. That's good. Is there any reason to believe that esports would draw viewers to ESPN? What basis do we have for that? If you had some examples of other people who have covered these kinds of sports, the tournaments that draw lots of people, people going on their computers to watch these competitions that are going on, something like that, that would then give us a reason to believe that ESPN might see a market in those kinds of things. So I think you're missing some information there. The generalization that you have, I believe that sponsors would be drawn to this if it was on ESPN. You know, if I'm wanting to sell, I don't know, video game consoles or controllers or video games, or I just wanted to market my energy drink to people whose only energy expended is their thumbs, you know, and I've got a really great product for that. I think that there would probably be people there. I see what you're talking about, but like if you were a marketing person at ESPN and you're going out to Dr. Pepper or to you know, I'm about to show you how little I know about any of these things. Segway, Atari, Sony, whatever group is putting on these games, that sort of thing. Does Segway even exist anymore? No? Okay. Yeah. How about Atari? Do they still exist? No, they're gone. Okay. You know, whatever it happens to be. I'm sure there are big companies and big names that, you know, that sort of thing. If you were like the salesperson, you know, come, you know, be a sponsor for our program here, come advertise on this, you need a stronger argument for them to convince them. And that's what we're looking for. I think that's where your argument is. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.